So this game is basically the second installment in this kind of Go approach that we're doing at Square Enix Montreal. Obviously made Hitman GO last year, about a year and a half ago, which was the idea to kind of distill a big AAA game into a mobile game instead of doing a straight port, kind of building a new game from the ground up.
Yeah.
And as you can see here, we're kind of building on top of that. Even though we're using a completely new approach in terms of art direction and style, we're still keeping that kind of turn-based model that we introduced with Hitman GO. So you can see these lines and dots on the floor, and just with the same kind of control scheme, I can just swipe Lara to kind of move to the next step.
Yeah.
And the cool thing is, one of the first kind of game changers that we introduced is obviously Lara Croft being a very athletic character. There's also vertical movement now, so I can climb into this cave and kind of opening up into this game. This is the very first level that you'll see when you play the game. So discovering this kind of jungle landscape and discovering this cave, going down the cave. Much like in Hitman GO, we really like to introduce these mechanics and the way the game works just very organically, without like pop-ups or hand-holding to the player. So obviously this level being super easy, it's just a kind of a straight path that I have to go through, and obviously my goal is to get to the end level checkpoint there.
I gotcha.
In between the levels you get a little map to kind of show kind of the relationship in terms of space where the levels are.
So Hitman GO was a board game based thing. You had the playing field, you had to get to the exit and either avoid or take out the guys along the way. This is it a little more linear in the way it progresses?
It is, I would say it's very comparable to kind of the levels that are set up, but we're, especially I guess the first one is maybe a little bit of an odd one out, as you see in a second, because it's kind of just, using also that kind of linear kind of puzzle there to tell a little bit of a story, like discovering that cave and going into that cave. We're using that as kind of like a storytelling moment. Here we're introducing the first mechanic. Obviously I want to get to the other side of this ledge there, but I can't. And in very classic Tomb Raider and Lara Croft fashion, we can activate these switches to activate these kind of ancient mechanisms that raise parts, and now I can pass this bridge here. And this just introducing one new mechanic, and obviously now we can start making puzzles with it. So if you've played Hitman GO, this will seem very familiar to you. Different kind of colored switches raise different colored platforms. Now I get access to the green platform here, and I can raise this one over there. And so it's just starting to create simple puzzles, because this is obviously just the second level in the game, and we're now going to get people eased in nicely. And I think one of the big differences you'll see in a second, kind of hard to hear because you don't have the sound, but you see that as I finish this level, as I go through it, there is something moving in the background. So this time, and you see that again in a second, as I finish this level here, as we're discovering this place, we also realize that we're kind of awakening some sort of a creature in the background. So as opposed to Hitman GO, which was really like one board at a time and kind of detached, almost abstract kind of vignette moments. This game is much more about an overarching kind of concept in terms of story and narrative. So that, if you've seen before, we came from the jungle, we went to the cave, now we're seeing this kind of ancient structure, and as we progress, it's really like a kind of a narrative curve that we're building around it. Even though we still retain this kind of, as we like to call it, ambient storytelling, so there's no kind of dialogue or cutscenes that take like, hey, look at this. It's mostly about telling a story through the environments as you progress through them. And here, showing you some of the new mechanics that we have. Obviously, Lara Croft is not about taking out dozens and dozens of guards like Hitman was. Lara has different kind of obstacles and enemies. And in this case, this is a cool mechanic that kind of builds on top of the turn-based gameplay that we have. With this cracked floor, I can step on it once, but if I do a mistake, like here, just introducing this is a dead end. If I go on it the second time, Lara falls, and this is kind of one of the fail states, so you have to restart the level again. So really making sure to kind of adapt the kind of the turn-based gameplay, but also its mechanics to its franchise, and not just reskinning Hitman and putting Lara in it. So
I'm curious about the genesis of it all, because I mean, when you first launched the Hitman game, people were slightly surprised by what it was. They were necessarily assuming it was going to be a third-person, port or something of the game, and it turned out to be this board game, which was very critically well received, and in the end, it did really well. But there was an initial reaction of like, "What is this? This isn't right." Had you guys been planning to do this with Lara from the beginning, or did this come as a reaction to the success of Hitman GO?
I think we realized with Hitman that we kind of struck something there that people were, even though they were skeptical at the beginning, and I think that's also a cool kind of position to be in. Like, they were, if you propose something that is very different from what people expect in this kind of mobile space with a big brand, but then, as you say, seeing the reaction to it and how much people really loved of that kind of bold statement that we did there. We kind of built on top of that, and obviously being in a luxurious but also difficult situation to kind of have that, you know, that success to play with, but at the same time you don't want to just, you know, reproduce the same thing again, because if you're known for a game that you made that is pretty different and is very bold, it's a very kind of difficult spot to be in. And I think this is really cool because we kind of keep the good things of this game and we kind of add new stuff that's really fitting the franchise of Lara Croft and Tomb Raider, trying to make a great game about it.
Okay, and when are you guys planning to launch? Do you have a date yet?
We don't have an exact date yet, but it's going to be later this year.